Awesome. Well, good morning. Welcome to day 2 of TechCon 2025. My name is Cash, and I'm going to be your host for All Day Wednesday in Track S, which is going to be our infrastructure, automation, and security track. So super excited to be here, excited to see y'all here. And for those of you who attended our day 1, you guys should be pretty familiar with the format by now. But for those who might be new to us, first of all, welcome. And a few reminders. Please submit all questions in the chat and take the polls. The polls should be shown on the bottom left of the screen. We want to keep this interactive. We would love to hear from you. And without further ado, let's get started with our first speakers today. And we are going to be learning a really imperative topic, and we're going to be learning and hearing about a really eye-opening conversation on how to leverage and secure generative AI. So without further ado, Jose Rodriguez and Preeti Patel.
Thank you, Cash. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As Cash was mentioning, today's sessions will be centered around securing and leveraging AI for IAM use cases. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and I lead the architecture team for the IBM Verify portfolio. With me today is Preeti Patel. Preeti, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Preeti Patel. I'm a product architect for the IAM Analytics in Verify.
So AI has become a major investment area for enterprises. Preeti, can you move to the next slide? According to the AI Index report, which is a report that is conducted by Stanford University, well-respected report, they projected that funding for generative AI projects will increase to $25.2 billion in 2025. They also indicated that 55% of the organizations will use Gen AI for at least one of their businesses function. And lastly, they also discovered that 80% of Fortune 500 companies mention AI as part of their earning calls, proving that AI is a significant part of their strategies to increase revenue and to manage cost. And just to give you an example in terms of the scale on how this transformation is happening on major corporations, let's take a look at the IBM use case. In IBM, just to give you a few examples, the employee experience today includes several situations in which we're leveraging generative AI to be able to improve the experience for our employees. For example, when we're managing human resources transactions or we're trying to discover any HR-related information, we do that through a chatbot interface called Ask HR. We also have a generic chatbot where we get general IBM company information that includes a large collection of different subjects that allow us to be able to educate ourselves in terms of company strategy, be able to get materials in terms of how to communicate to customers. It has a variety of subjects that get covered and that we are able to improve our employee experience by using this capability. We also have a generative AI capability for generating code or being able to explain existing code using our solution Watson Code Assistance. And all our development organization is using this in order to improve our velocity and be able to generate better code. And lastly, we have a productivity assisting tool that allows us to generate content like helping us draft emails, be able to generate description for epics. There's a large collection of activities that we can use the productivity assistance to be able to assist what we do daily. Now, IBM and AWS published a report related to securing Gen AI, and what they found is that Gen AI is going to attach itself to every aspect of a business, but leaders have concerns. 80% of the people that were interviewed say that a secure and trustworthy AI is essential for the success of their business, but only 24% have secure or are working on securing their existing Gen AI products. So our goal for today's session is to give you a perspective in terms of all the different attack vectors that get introduced when you start leveraging this technology, but also talk a little bit about how you can use our IAM capabilities to secure some of these use cases, and also how we're employing AI to be able to improve the AI administrative experience and be able to streamline some of the processes that today are highly manual, to be able to provide higher value and higher automation, so you can be able to manage more healthy IAM programs. So when we look at the Gen AI technology, you have to look at it from two perspectives, right? It's transformative. It's going to help companies run their business in a more efficient way, but it's also an enabler for bad guys to be able to optimize their processes as well. And it changes the situation dramatically in both aspects. From an attacker's perspective, if you look at the attacks, they become more evasive, pervasive, and adaptive. And from an attacker's perspective, it's enabling a new generation of attackers that can leverage sophisticated attacks that have been commoditized. In the past, attackers needed to invest a lot more time developing techniques. Now they can use generative tools to be able to generate the assets necessary to be able to initiate these attacks. And also the attack surface has also grown much larger, where you have to consider additional things like, for example, attacking the data that is used to train the models, attacking the models themselves by being able to influence their behavior, or being able to exercise new attacks that leverage the technology specifically. Now, from a defender point of view, then we got to look at the tools that it provides this population to be able to optimize their mechanisms to be able to address some of the risks. And AI enables more agile mechanisms for being able to develop defenses, either by generating rules, generating policies, automating some of the responses that are going to be used to mitigate this attack. It provides a new tool for defenders that can add a new layer where AI becomes the first line of defense prior to any user or human interaction in order to mitigate some of these attacks. And all this is designed to counterattack and to be able to deal with this new attack surface. On today's session, as I mentioned before, we're going to look at this from two perspectives. We're going to look at it from the ability to use IAM and other techniques to secure AI, but also look at how we can use AI to enhance the experience for security practitioners to be able to enhance their IAM programs. So when we look at security for AI, we have to look at some of the aspects associated with this new threat vectors. We have to look at how we can protect the underlying data that we use to train models. We have to secure how organizations are developing these models to accommodate their business use cases. And also how we can do a secure usage of these AI models to be able to solve business process. And in today's sessions, we're mostly going to concentrate on that last bullet. We're going to look at how some of the newer IAM constructs can be used to be able to enable corporations to build Gen AI applications that are secure. Now, from the AI for security perspective, we're going to look at how AI can assist an IAM administrator to build streamlined IAM programs. We're going to look at how we can use AI to automate some of the common administrative tasks. We're going to look at how we can use AI to generate security content. Example of those could be access policies, could be detections of threats. It could be the generation of scripting that can implement a business process that in a manner that is secure. And we're lastly going to look at AI as a mechanism to be able to enhance our ability to do threat detection and to be able to evaluate the risk associated with a transaction via adaptive access, and also how to generate these automated responses that will allow us to mitigate those threats in the quicker way possible. So now I'm going to turn this over to Preeti, where she's going to spend some time talking to us about AI for security.
Thank you, Jose. So imagine a world where cybersecurity teams no longer have to struggle with the overwhelming alerts or repetitive tasks, and they can also respond to any threats in real time. So this is exactly what the generative AI can bring to the cybersecurity world today. So if we look at the first step to secure the organization is to understand the threats. Understanding the threats quickly and accurately. So this can be done by the teams by analyzing huge amount of data, and that's where the generative AI can help them to streamline the security operations by minimizing the human bottlenecks, providing the generative AI insights, which can be used to streamline the processes and reducing the time required for the analysis. It can it can speed up the threat investigation by using the threat intelligence and the contextualization based recommendation from AI. Additionally, it can also provide the expert level guidance, and this expert level guidance or explanations could be for any cyber observables or scripting languages or system. So for example, the AI-powered threat summarization and identity analytics can instantly identify and highlight the risks and the patterns so that security teams can focus on what really matters most to them. So generative AI can not only analyze the huge amount of data, but it can also generate the security content so that the security teams can do the things faster. Like for example, it can help the IAM admin to define the access policies. It can help the IAM admin to also write the scripts which are required for some of the automation of the IAM functionalities. So I will talk more about these in the later slides. The third key here is the automation, which is very important to stay ahead of the cyber threats. So cyber threats are can be avoided by looking at the high volume and the low risk incidents by automating these. And also it can also enable the actions, right, which are security actions. For example, the AI can suggest what are the remediation actions for the threats which are detected. It can also suggest that these are the suspicious IPs, maybe these should be blocked in real time. So this is how the security team can make the decisions at the machine speed. And everything is automated. So you can think of it as a security system, which is like a self-driving security system, which are handling the routine tasks seamlessly and while escalating only the critical threat events. And this includes the automation could be around automated access approvals, list privilege enforcement, or it could also be the real-time threat remediation. So let's move on to the next slide, which talks about what are the real life AI-powered security use cases which we provide in IBM Verify, which helps our security teams to focus on what really matters most to them. So the first one is around proactive threat detection and the response. As you know that the cybersecurity is evolving and the identity attacks are on the rise. As per the survey of Identity-Defined Security Alliance in 2024, 90% organizations said that they have experienced one or more identity attacks in last 1 year. And that's why the organization needs to shift from their reactive approach to the proactive approach, where they need to proactively detect and respond to threats of large identity attacks in real time. And this is where the verified threat detection platform can help them to identify any anomalies in the login activities which we are observing in Verify. Additionally, it can also suggest what are the remediations for those. Like, for example, if we find that we are seeing the suspicious traffic, which is either could be due to brute force attack or the credential stuffing attack, then the recommendation by the AI would be to block these IP addresses, or maybe we can ask for the MFA for all the users who are coming from those IP addresses, so that we ensure the only the legitimate users can log in from those suspicious IPs. The second thing is the password intelligence, where we can identify what are the weak or the compromised passwords being used by the users in the system. And this is the way where the credential stuffing attack comes into picture, where if we have such a few number of compromised credential usages from the IP addresses, but suddenly AI has identified that there is a behavior anomaly where now we have seen several thousands of users with compromised credentials from the same IP address. And this is where then AI can detect, okay, this is a credential stuffing attack, and then it can proactively prevent these attacks by blocking such traffic in real time. The third point is around the continuous risk-based authentication. This is about as the cyber threats are evolving, the security needs to be dynamic, not static. So the continuous risk-based authentication creates the user risk profile. And these are the dynamic profiles which are based on the device or the location from where the user is logging in, or it could be based on the behavior pattern. And based on this risk in real time, we can detect whether this could be a legitimate user or it could be a fraudulent user. And based on that, we can either send him for the MFA if we detect it as a fraudulent user. So this helps us to prevent the breach, prevent the fraudulent activities, as well as at the same time, we are not causing the friction to the legitimate users. So this is what we refer as the adaptive risk-based authentication, which uses the AI-powered risk profiles to determine what should be the action when user is logged in into the system. So let me move on to the next slide. So this is the IBM Verify Identity Protection, which is a cloud-based solution as a part of Verify. And this specifically focuses on the broader ITDR use cases, which is identity threat detection and response use cases, where it helps us to get the insights or insights into the identity infrastructure, and any identity posture issues can be identified with this. So for example, it can identify the identity and access blind spots. So these are the blind spots where either these could be because of the shadow accesses or shadow identity system or shadow usage of the SaaS apps. And these shadow accesses can create the security gaps. So Verify Identity Protection can provide visibility into these so that the appropriate remediation actions can be carried out on such blind spots. The second one is the identity infrastructure exposure. This is about identity infrastructure exposure is where there could be a credential risk, or there are the MFA related bypasses which are occurring, and these are actually exposing the organization to the breaches, and hence these needs to be identified at the right time and also remediated. The third one is about the risky identity accesses, where these are where the security controls are being bypassed. For example, there has to be MFA, but that MFA is not done. So there is a MFA bypass which has happened. So, or any suspicious activity, which is like maybe a user logging in from the multiple geographies within short amount of time. So these are the things which indicates the potential threats, and these are another types of identity access risk which verify identity protection guide identify and help the admins to take the proactive remediation actions based on these. These the VIP also has the out-of-box connector for Verify SaaS and IBM QRadar, so that it is easy to discover and quickly remediate the threats from these as well. But let's understand how it is done by Verify Identity Protection. So Verify Identity Protection has a unique technology where it can correlate the identity events with the network flows and the cloud flows. It leverages the AI to do that correlation. And in addition to that, it also uses the deep learning to build the access maps. It can use it to identify any behavior anomalies or any blind spots. And all these then can be fed for the appropriate response. So let me move on to the next part, which is a set of capabilities where we can detect the access risk in size using the identity analytics. This is part of our Verify Identity Governance portfolio. Identity analytics helps us to analyze the users, accesses, application, and the entitlements and identify any gaps or entitlements which users should not be having. So for example, we performed the peer group analysis using AI and ML, which analyzes the all the user and their entitlements, and it compares it with the peers. Like for example, if the user is from security department, then he would be getting certain entitlements based on his department. He can also get certain entitlements based on which team he is in. So he will have the maybe the same manager, right? So these are the different peers, and based on these peers, user might get different entitlements. However, when the AI analyzes all the entitlements together, then it can identify the entitlements which user should not be having, because maybe it can see the entitlements which none of the peers are having, and those are the entitlements which helps us to clean up the entitlement mess. So so the AI can recommend these are the excessive entitlements, and additionally it can also recommend what are the proactive actions which can be done. For example, if it is an entitlement, then it needs to be hold on. So sorry. So it needs to be sent for the certification, or if it is a maybe a account which is dormant, which is identified as another entitlement risk, then that account needs to be disabled. So these kind of recommendation can be performed by AI. The second one is the risk-based governance. So here, whatever the risk which we have been identified, maybe those actions are automatically sent for the remediations, and this helps the risk manager to get the benefit of the AI to reduce his own workload of reviewing all these risks and doing the proactive remediation manually. And the third one is the better decisions, where all this risk information can also be used by the, let's say, the LOB manager or for reviewing these entitlements, or when somebody is actually reviewing these certifications. And this helps them to take the better informed decision whether the access should be approved or revoked. So till now, we talked about how we can employ AI in various use cases. Now I will focus on what kind of generative AI experiences we have in Verify. And these are mainly around improving the productivity of the IAM admin so that they can get the real-time feedback or any contextual information, and all these things with natural language as an interface. So some of the use cases which we are focusing here are maybe getting the right information from the documentation. The second one is the threat summarization, where we can get the contextual information. For example, the admin can ask, okay, what are the recent threats? He can ask, what are the compromised accounts, which needs any remediation action. He can also get the information about what are the suspicious IPs and if there are any remediation actions which needs to be taken on those. So all these things helps the admin to get the answers in natural language, removing the manual work where he has to go through the reports and identify, okay, what are the recent threats and what kind of insights it's providing, because these threats could be the number of threats which gets generated could be huge. The last use case on this slide is the access policy generation. And this is where the Gen AI is helping to generate the content. So I will maybe shift to the next slide, which talks more about the access policy generation. So here, this use case is specifically where the access policies are used to define access and authorization decision. However, to define the access policies, first the admin needs to understand how to define the access policy in Verify UI, because the access policies are typically defined as rules. And to define the rules, he needs to understand what are the attributes he needs to use, what are the operations, what are the valid values. However, with the help of Gen AI, we can provide an interface where the admin can describe what he really wants to do in the natural language, and then the Gen AI can generate this policy without manual intervention, and then admin can review it. So let's see this in action. So here, this demo video captures the as-is scenario before we introduce the Gen AI, where Scott has to log in into the UI, and then he can go to the access policies. And first, if the step to start to define the policy, as I mentioned, is to understand what are the various attributes which are available. And then based on the logic and the complexity, he needs to identify what are the right attributes which he needs to use. What are the values? Like here, the admin wants to use the group information. So he needs to go to the group page and understand what are the groups which are available. And then based on that, he can define the policy where here basically he wants to define a policy where he wants to provide the MFA for the users who are with developer. However, he wants to allow the developer and the admin with FIDO2 MFA authentications. So here, this is the experience when he can go and create the access policy with the Gen AI interface. So this is how the access policy generation works. So he needs to tell, okay, he wants to generate the access policy. Then admin can provide the name for the access policy. So this is access policy for admins and the developers. And then he can describe what is the logic for this. So as I mentioned earlier, like the here he wants to do the MFA always with FIDO2 with admin, which is a stricter MFA. However, for the developer, he would like to give the flexibility of having the MFA with FIDO2 as well as the email OTP. And for others, we would like to block the access. So once he describes these rules, then it goes to the Watson X and it generates the rules, which, as you saw in the earlier session, which admin had to configure manually. And this is what now the auto-populated rules which are generated by the generative AI, where now you can see that Gen AI has automatically identified the group which needs to be used. And it has also identified the attribute conditions for the same. Okay, so the next next use case is the CL script generation. This is where in Verify we have multiple places where the custom logic needs to be written, and that's where the Verify scripting language comes into the picture. And this scripting language is based on the common expression language, but it also has the extension which we have done on the verify. And that was one of the pain point which we heard from our customer, that they find it difficult to write these, and many times the sales team or the CTPs end up writing these. Hence, this is something which we have developed. This is a quick demo which is work in progress, where I will show you how the natural language description can be used to generate the CL expression. So here the use case is defining the attribute, which is based on the advanced rule, where this can be used to define a function so that the attribute values can be transformed. So I've just taken created an attribute, test attribute, and here the option is to generate the CL expression, and then the admin can describe what that expression should do. So in this case, the logic is that return true if the user is having department security or cloud, otherwise return false. And once this description is provided, then the watsonx generates the appropriate code for it. And it provides it in the same interface. And then this code can be then used to define the logic. And we also have a quick UI where this can be tested. So as you can see, here is a sample data which is provided to the script, and it is able to identify the output of that. Okay. So till now, we have seen various use cases where AI is being leveraged, and definitely with evolving cyber threats, AI is not an optional, it's a necessity. So now I will hand over back to Jose so that he can talk about how this AI can be, AI also needs security, so he will cover those aspects in the next slide.
Yeah, thank you, Preeti. Very exciting technology that I think is going to help our customers be able to streamline their IAM programs by leveraging some of this automation to help administrators be able to easily manage their environments. Now, shifting our focus to security for AI, Gen AI has a transformative impact on businesses. And there's a strong desire by organizations to start leveraging this technology to provide business outcomes. Now, that will only serve purpose if it's done right. And like any new technology, we have to recognize that there is new security risks associated with them. And IBM has, in order to communicate this risk and be able to guide corporations on how to securely build applications, it has created a report where we concentrate on building a framework for securing generative AI. And the way that it's being laid out is by representing that journey as part of a pipeline. And that pipeline includes several milestones where, different types of attack vectors are considered, and we have to be able to have solutions to be able to mitigate those exposures. So starting from the top, if we look at the first activity on the journey, we're talking about data collection and handling. And during this data collection and handling phase, what happens is you collect amounts of data that you're looking to feed to the model. And as part of that process, typically organizations provide access to different people. And this information might have information that is sensitive, either because it represents intellectual property, or because it has PII. And there is a number of concerns with regards to privacy, with regards to exfiltration of some of this data. And typically, you have to consider what are the access control mechanisms that you're going to use in this stage to avoid, some of that data being either filtrated or also be influenced in order to negatively affect the behavior of the model. Then the second milestone is around mobile development. And what's happening here is that applications are being built in this brand new way, and new vulnerabilities are being introduced because these vulnerabilities become new entry points for attackers to be able to exploit. And what's happening here is there is such a desire to be able to implement some of the scenarios that we start leveraging assets that are coming from different sources, including open source. And sometimes those repositories are not properly controlled. So you have an opportunity for attackers to be able to count on that behavior and be able to inject backdoor or malware that into these models that then become areas of attacks subsequently for these applications that are being developed. And the last phase of the pipeline, this is when we have to worry about the secure usage of these capabilities. And here you have to guard for new types of attacks into the model, where you can use the ability to manipulate prompts to be able to remove some of the guardrails and be able to influence the behavior of the model. Being able to include bias, be able to provide false or toxic information. It becomes a scenario where it can have severe reputational damage into the organization that is making this scenarios available. And so in today's conversation, we are going to look at this last aspect of the pipeline, but we're going to look at specific scenario that has to do with applications that are leveraging agents as a mechanism to provide some of these automated experiences. So looking at how to securely build applications, the requirement is that we have to establish end-to-end trust and accountability for digital worker systems. This is where you use Gen AI to be able to assess a human worker in order to be more effective at their job. And we have to look at this from 5 different dimensions. The first one has to do with accountability. And this is going away from using generic privileged identities, and we use mechanisms to be able to propagate the identities that represents the actual actors, and making sure that they adequately represent the scenario that is being exercised, either by doing work on behalf of the actor or having an impersonation flow where somebody is doing work on behalf of a third party. The second dimension is around preventing fraud, and we need to make sure that we prevent any fraud or any misuse of privileges. For this, we must implement mechanisms that implement least privilege principles. So we only delegate or assign the appropriate permissions that are necessary for the digital worker to be able to complete the activity that we want to do. The third dimension is around safeguarding of the data, and we must have the right access control mechanisms to prevent improper usage, improper disclosure of information that the actors shouldn't have any access to. The fourth dimension is around compliance, and this has to do with being able to have adequate visibility around all the actions that are being performed, and then be able to audit and hold actors accountable for the activities that they have performed and prevent any threats. And lastly is around governance, and we need to make sure that we have the right governance control to make sure that the AI usage is within the boundaries of what the organization has designed for this solution, and making sure that we're looking at any misusage of non-human actors that are working either on behalf of the user or autonomously. So now let's look a little bit at quick classification of the different scenarios that we can see in this space. And this is a simple categorization. I'm sure you can find many different attempts to categorize the different types of agents that people are leveraging in order to enable some of this technology. But I'm going to simplify the conversation, and we're just going to look at two main categories. We're going to look at agents that act autonomously and agents that act on behalf of humans. And we're going to look at what things or characteristics are common and what is unique about these different types of agents. So when we look at the ones that act autonomously, typically the main characteristic is that they don't react to a human-initiated activity, and it's more of a reacting to an event that triggers the actions that need to be performed by the agent. That could be just one building component of a larger automation workflow. When we looked at the act on behalf of humans agents, we're looking at an agent reacting to a human interaction that typically happens through a conversational manner, where they're performing operations or actions on behalf of that human. Now, there are some characteristics that are common, and agents must be unique identifiable. So we want to be able to audit the environment. We want to be able to have visibility and accountability around the things that are happening. And the only way that we can do that is we can uniquely identify agents. We, in order to be able to govern these agents, there is a desire to have clear human ownership of the credentials associated with the agents. We want to also limit the permissions that are associated with these agents in a way that is less privileged, and that we're only enabling access to those enterprise services that are required to be able to achieve the action that the agent is looking to perform. And as I mentioned before, the agent's actions need to be auditable. And lastly, when we look at the uniqueness factor, what we're looking in the autonomous case is that agents can only perform the actions that are within the scope of their own authorization, because the agent itself is the subject that is acting. In the case of the on behalf of user, we look at several aspects. Number one is the human must be aware of the fact that they're interacting with an agent. The human, in some cases, should give consent for the activity that the agent is performing on their behalf. That consent could be implicit or it could be explicit. There's different models for enabling that. And lastly, the universe of permissions that a particular agent will be calculated based on sort of the intersection between what the human can do versus what the agent should be able to do in order to satisfy the scenario that is being desired. So, so just to give you an idea at a high level of what this architecture looks like, and there's a lot of common components, but very quickly, in the case of an autonomous agent, as I mentioned before, the actual agent is a subject, and it obtains a token that represents the agent itself. And what happens is there is a component that will enforce policy that will be responsible for obtaining the token that was presented by the agent. It will validate that the token is valid, and then it will make a determination of the entitlements necessary based on what the interaction is looking to exercise. It could be a component that exposes content. It could be a component that looks at data. It could be an agent. It could be a skill. And this policy enforcement component will be responsible for exchanging the token that came from the agent. So then we only delegate the specific permissions that are required for the activity that the agent is looking to exercise. On the right side, when we look at the conversational agent, and there's a lot of common components on that architecture as well, but there is an additional component that deals with the conversational aspects of this flow, where you have an application with an user experience where a human is interacting with that user experience. And then in order to be able to interact with the agent, the skill, the data, they do it through this assistant component. And you see the policy enforcement represented on multiple layers of the pipeline in order to be able to translate and maintain tokens to the minimal privilege necessary in order to be able to complete a particular case. Now, what we want to do now is talk a little bit about a common scenario that we're seeing and how verified technology can be used to mitigate that. As I mentioned before, there is a strong desire to enable this use case, and in some cases that desire is causing that some of the people implementing these flows are not considering the security implications. And so what typically happens if you're doing a conversational use case for generative AI is that the security of the system is based on the ability to be able to propagate the token that established the authenticated session with the application, and we downstream that same token across all the individual components that are part of the pipeline. And this has many different drawbacks or challenges because you're not minimizing the amount of permissions that you're providing, so those backend components to be able to act upon or on behalf of the user. So you're essentially providing the same permissions that the actual user has when interacting with the application. So you have the situation where you have a fully permitted subject token that is propagated to all layers. You don't have any least privilege. So now you're providing full access to API and data for anybody that can obtain this token. There is a lack of scoping across all the different layers. You're not placing any restrictions on the agents that the token can invoke, because since it's fully permissions, if you have several agents operating on the agent backend, you can essentially move across multiple agents using the same token. And there is no mechanism to avoid misuse of the token because they are not bound to a specific client. So what we are proposing and leveraging even on our own generative AI solution within the IAM Verify solution is use the mechanism of OAuth token exchange as a way to be able to implement least privilege and zero trust across all the different layers of the solution. The mechanism or the approach, the way it works is you use token exchange from the application in order to generate a new scope token that then gets provided to the assistant backend. That token has very low permissions, and that gets routed all the way to the agent skill. Essentially, this will only include permissions to be able to invoke the specific agent that the user wants to interact with. And then in the event that the execution of the agent needs to invoke an API back on the application, then we can use, again, token exchange as a mechanism to translate that agent scope token into a authentication token that can allow you to authorize APIs on the product, but limiting the permissions of that token only to what's strictly necessary by the agent. So with this approach, we now have a scope subject token propagated through the layers. We're implementing least privilege. We now have proper scoping for APIs. The tokens can be restricted to specific actions or agents, and the tokens can be bound to a given client using some of the proof of precision technologies like DPoP or certificate-bound tokens. So just to give you a view on the technology that we're using for this, a few months back, we introduced OAuth token exchange support on Verify. Is quite a comprehensive technology that allows to have zero trust and least privilege controls. In the case of least privilege, it allows you to restrict scopes as a mechanism to be able to assert access control when you're connecting with verified issue token to external resources, but it also allows for flexible controls to issue specific permissions when an agent needs to call back into verified API resources. It allows interoperability because it supports both external and verified issue tokens, and it provides very flexible controls for being able to map user identities and be able to just-in-time provision users and do identity linking. It provides flexible token format. It could be JWT tokens, opaque token formats, and it provides customizable content for all the tokens that we generate. And it implements security-based practices by allowing for proof of possession mechanisms for issue tokens, for higher assurance client authentication mechanisms, and it also provides support for strong signature and encryption algorithms. Is a technology that can be applied to Gen AI use cases as well as any other high value API protection use cases using our platform. It's industry standard and it supports both delegation as well as impersonation semantics from the token exchange protocol. Now, lastly, to close, we want to leave you with first, want to express our vision that is rooted in 3 aspects with regards to securing Gen AI use cases. We want to continue to provide capabilities to implement zero trust and least privilege for Gen AI applications. We want to effectively govern human and non-human identities to achieve the right levels of visibility, accountability, and auditability of this type of applications. And we want to be able to monitor the usage and activity related to this type of applications so we can detect threats and mitigate the threats associated. In terms of enabling the verified portfolio with AI, we have a few items we're working on. We are looking at using AI as a mechanism to optimize the way certification campaigns are carried by doing analysis of the risk and providing automation to be able to make some of the decisions that today are human-made and use machines in order to automate and optimize this process. Whereas was shown by Preeti, we're looking at other scenarios for generating security content. We show you today the ability to do customization via scripting that are generated via AI, but we're also looking at workflow, be able to generate user journeys using Gen AI. We are going to continue investing in the ability to do continuous access control and governance using Gen AI as a mechanism to evaluate risk and be able to consolidate multiple threat signals in a way that can be comprehended by IAM administrators. We're also leveraged to automate some of the mitigation techniques. And we continue to invest in improving our ability to detect misuse. Particularly, there's a lot of focus around non-human identities because the Gen AI motion and evolution is going to dramatically increase the usage and the automated flows leveraging non-human identities, and we want to make sure that we have the proper controls and detection techniques to be able to have the right visibility. With that, I just invite you to start leveraging some of these technologies by registering to a free trial of IBM Verify SaaS. Thanks for your audience, and we hope that this was useful and productive for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose and Preeti. This was an incredibly thorough and insightful conversation, and what a way to start the day. And guys, don't be shy. Please ask any questions that you have, regardless if it's tough. We want to hear it. We want to get challenged. So please, please, please ask any questions you have. But if you can't really think of any right now, we do have office hours from 2:30 to 3 p.m. EDT today. If you haven't attended one before, this is your chance to talk directly to our lovely speakers about any topics or just a general discussion about what you're experiencing and just use cases, etc. And before we move on, I actually do have one specific question. So you guys did a phenomenal job explaining everything. And something that I've personally encountered is how can we see IAM be leveraged to secure LLMs? Do you have any specific use cases that you can bring up or just any specifics that you can mention in this context?
Yeah, so the approach to secure LLMs is a holistic process where you have to look at the individual threat vectors and have the right controls. And this is an area where a lot of innovation is expected. Today, our focus is primarily looking at mechanisms where we can help secure the application so the right security context is available when LLMs are being employed. There is some additional work that we have to do as an industry to look at mechanisms where we can leverage that security context as a way to have the right controls with regards to data disclosure, access control when the model is leveraging some of the information that was used to train it. I think there is a universe of technology that will have to be developed going forward in order to be able to improve the security posture around some of this new technology, and is evolving. We have a effort within IBM where we're collaborating with multiple areas of IBM to look at building a more comprehensive view on how IAM plays a part, but also how other areas of our organization can be used to deal with different attack vectors that related to securing LLMs.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for clarifying that. And once again, if you guys aren't aware, please provide feedback for this session. There should be a poll at the bottom left of the screen. Please text if you're not able to see that. But otherwise, go on to the next session on your schedule or select your next session if you haven't yet. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up for the rest of the day, so please don't be late to your track. We start promptly at 11:05, and I hope to see all of you again soon. So thank you once again, Jose and Preeti, and I hope you guys, actually, we do have a couple more questions if we have a few more minutes to discuss. We have one from Katie Johnson, which is asking, can I monitor access from business units applications? Example, Canvas for marketing. So we have time for one more question, and the rest of the questions we'll discuss more in office hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So at every stage of the process where applications are leveraging tokens with Verify and are using those tokens in order to make authorization decisions at the multiple layers of the building blocks of the application, all that activity is audited. That activity becomes part of our audit logs that we generate that indicate not only what tokens have been issued to the individual parties, but also what permissions were associated with each of those tokens. We can see also when applications are leveraging our interfaces to authorize by either calling some of the OAuth components in order to validate the if a token is valid at a given point. And we have mechanisms where you can generate reports or even communicate some of this activity to external parties by integrating our audit feeds with SIEM solutions, as well as being able to do webhooks as a mechanism to communicate some of this activity to external interested parties. So yeah, it provides plenty of visibility and auditability when you're leveraging our technology to secure those use cases.
That was a great explanation. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, if you guys have any more questions, we do have office hours from 2:30 to 3 EDT. So if you guys think of anything else, want to talk to Jose and Preeti, please stop by the office hour session. And otherwise then, I hope you guys had a great time listening to them. I know I did. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, guys.